Nigeria's central bank took the center stage on Tuesday. The House of Reps public hearing on the planned review of the Bank and Other Financial Institutions Act. And when you're reviewing BOFIA or anything on banking, the financial regulator sits on the front row, taking all the heat, at the same time presenting its own versions of what it wants to happen within that industry. So it was an opportunity for the central bank to make a few comments and push some of these thoughts through on Tuesday. This is what part of what Johnson Kinwumi, who's the director, legal services at the central bank, told you, House of Rep members, the committee, they kept throwing questions at him regarding what the central bank would want in terms of the counterparty issues, the regulatory issues within the industry, and of course, some of those very vexed issues of revocation of bank licenses. If you have been around long enough, you know how difficult and painful and emotional revocation of bank licenses were. Just look at history. Then, of course, the central bank says it also wants to be able to inject equity fund into banks. That's very new. We don't have that here yet. Now, the central bank says if a bank is sick, it may decide to buy some of the shares and hold it. You have such in other climes, such as the United Kingdom, but not yet here in Nigeria. So let's take a listen to this very lengthy, hard-hitting panel hearing, the House of Reps, where you have the central bank director of legal services make some point on behalf of the financial regulator.
If you take BOFIA, just that we are dealing with today, for example, we have made this same effort since as early as the 4th, or if not the 3rd assembly, to even review the entire BOFIA, not even just to amend. And Honorable Appiah made reference to it in her own remarks also. So it isn't that we don't support. In fact, I'm sure the financial sector regulators will probably be the happiest if, when they notice a gap, they can get legislative backing in that same financial year. I mean, we would welcome it, because we would then know that not only are we armed with a strong tool to regulate, that tool can be reviewed in the light of developments in the financial system. There's nobody who will be more abreast of financial sector developments other than the regulators. But the regulators sometimes they are challenged to do anything about it, especially when there's a legislative brick wall. That's where we stop. So it isn't that we are to be held responsible, and it isn't that we don't make effort to draw attention to loopholes and to gaps that are being exploited. The only problem is when there is no law, we simply just resort to regulatory, we try to bridge the gap as much as possible, but there's always a limit to this if there is no legal backing. There isn't any financial sector bill that has been considered by any chamber of the National Assembly up till now, and including the present one, that we haven't had our own counterpart bill. Mr. Chairman, you will recall at the time even the Senate said all we should do is submit presentation, not a dummy or counterpart bill. And why are we able to come up with these bills? Because over time we have always had it. There is none that impinges on our operations that we don't have a counterpart of. That is number one. Number two, the situation is not helped by the policy of the government that MDA bills, let me put it that way, can only come to the National Assembly as executive bills and must first and foremost have been considered by the Federal Executive Council. So again, that's a direct, it was actually sent to us via the circular. So that is a policy of the government. So those twin problems tend to make it seem as if we are not as proactive as we should have been in terms of developing bills. But that is not the situation, sir. arbitrary or unilateral if central bank is given the power to review sanctions. Again, I think we are saying the same thing. First and foremost, the alter ego of every bank will probably be its board, the chairman, the chief executive, and the board members. You have already given us power to approve them and to remove them. So it is something we can actually do. So if we then want a lesser power to actually deal with some things we consider that sanction penalties can deal with, I think it doesn't make us any arbitrary, and it doesn't make our action or decision a unilateral one. And even though by virtue, some of you are not all economists and financial and bankers here, but by virtue of the cardinal and fundamental work you carry out here, you are as much an expert in any sector of endeavor as even the certified experts outside. Really, the sanction isn't like a penalty. For example, I remember when round tripping was very prevalent, we had the power to revoke license. But we will say, return every kobo you have made as profit from this illegality. And there is no bank that will not comply hastily, because they know that we have the power to wield the beast, which is even to end the life of that banking institution, which I think we would have been right to do it, but we won't do it unless we know that its implications for the financial system is something we can very easily contain. So the point we are making is that it isn't that we want administrative sanctions. We want to have power to review it just for the sake of playing the big brother. Everybody, we are just in the middle. Everybody accuses central bank. Investors accuse us. Banks accuse us when it pleases them, or whether, depending on where the state happens. So we are not seeking power for its own sake. But as you know, sir, the banking subsector thrives on two things: trust and confidence. And these are very, very shaky things. Mr. Chairman, I told you one story of a very big bank in Japan, which happened to have the misfortune of being located near a bus stop. There was nothing wrong with that bank, but one day there was traffic chaos like we have in Nigeria today. No fuel. And then you had a long queue of vehicles in front, starting from the bus stop. And somebody just called a friend. See the long queue in front of bank ABC, go and collect your money. And within 3 hours, a very strong, healthy Japanese bank came on its knees because of that huge run. So these are things that we are always mindful of when we are taking any particular decision whatsoever. We do not seek power for its own sake, sir.